Let's go on to the man that fired me.
Nick Saban retired, which is pretty incredible. We're having a run, man. Like Bill Belichick, he and Nick Saban are contemporaries. Of course, they coached together in Cleveland. He's out in New England. Pete Carroll is out in Seattle. Nick Saban's retiring. It's a wild time to be a football fan. But and you know Nick Saban well. You work with him in Miami. I think he did, in fact, ask you to leave, right?
He did. We,
but he actually respects you. And one of the things you've said about Nick Saban is that while he can be a tough hombre, is the word you like to use, you learn more football from Nick than anyone else.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the first call when I was fired by Minnesota was from Alabama, Nick Saban, and the respect factor there, and for me to go back to do some consulting work for Alabama while he was a head coach there was an incredible experience. And like I said, you can talk to 100 people and have different opinions on whether he's hard or easy to work with, but the one opinion that you will get a consistent messaging on is he is one of the most brilliant minds when it comes to football. And not one person that I've ever talked to that worked for Nick, including myself, would say, I am not a better talent evaluator. And I know much more about the game because of my short time I spent with Nick in Miami. But even over these last 2 years, even though I was working basically on the personnel side for him, but just to be at their practices, just to see why they're so successful down there. And, I don't think there's ever, or, maybe never another college coach that will have the success that he has had at Alabama, at LSU. He's a winner everywhere he's been. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah. And you've spoken extremely highly of Nick Saban in the conversations we've had. Not that we've had a lot, but just in terms of who he is. And one of the things I love about Nick Saban, again, I'm going to refer to Instagram because I get caught up looking at these Instagram reels, which is just, they're called short videos on Instagram, Rick, just so you know. But there are a lot of times people will cut things that either Saban says in his press conferences or he said at some convention or wherever he's speaking. And I send them to my wife and to my sister-in-law because they don't care about football, nor do they know who Nick Saban is. But the lessons are actually pretty interesting. And I was watching one the other day in which media get fired up about kicking guys off the team, especially these college kids.
I remember that.
Wrong. And he went on a tirade, not a tirade. He went on a nice little diatribe about why that doesn't make sense. And basically, the bottom line,
what do you want me to do with this kid?
What are these kids going to do?
Right. And the one thing I've learned from his is not only the football part of it, but the caring for the young men that have played for Nick Saban. Now, is he going to ride your rear end in practice and try to get you? If he's not riding you, then you can't play. So it's tough love, but the impact he's had on so many lives, not only on the field, but off the field, and how he's probably changed the path of a lot of the young men that he has coached that may went the wrong way, end up going the right way, because there's no one, and I've been around it, for as tough as he can be to work with, there's no one that cares more for his people and their family than Nick Saban.
And it's funny, when we have the Alabama kids come through the combine and we talk to them, every single one of them, to a person, loves Nick Saban and what he's done. And I've talked to people around that program that have said it takes a special 5-star kid to go to Alabama because they're used to being pampered their entire life. They understand what they're getting into. Some of them transfer, and that's fine. But the kids that stay understand that it ain't going to be Club Med. It's going to be a lot of hard work, and you're going to hear some things you probably have never heard before, but maybe that you need to hear. And I think that's one of the things that Saban's been really good at.
I know I'm not allowed to talk about draft prospects, but Terrion Arnold coming out of Alabama, go back and listen to one of his post-game interviews on the field and what he said about Nick Saban.
Was that the one where he came off the field and he saw Nick Saban yelling at somebody and ended up being him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's like, someone's in trouble.
Yeah. But it tells you the impact that Nick has on these kids, on how Terrion answered the interview questions after that. Phenomenal.
Another thing I'll just mention, and you can just listen, you can't talk. Jalen Milroe got benched earlier this year for playing not great football, and they went through some things there for a couple weeks. And to see Jalen Milroe and Nick Saban and Arjuni Dell on the sidelines after the last few games in which they won, told you all you needed to know about how Jalen Milroe felt about Nick Saban and how much he loved that man, even though they are 50 years age difference. But in terms of the respect they have for him, and I get it. People are complicated. There are things that Nick Saban has probably done that people don't like, but there are a lot of people that appreciate Nick Saban for who he is. But let's talk about some of the.
Wait.
Oh, go ahead.
Get off now.
Oh my God.
Jalen Milroe is not coming out in the draft.
Oh my gosh. Debo.
Do you guys miss me?
Someone's going to cut that clip and say, this is the man responsible for hiring our general manager and quarterback. No comment from Debo. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, Rick put a hat over his face and pretended that he was Darth Vader. Unbelievable.
I was like one of those in a protective witness program.
Right. Yeah. You were talking about the mobster that the DA is trying to put away. You don't want your identity revealed, even though your name is on the hat. All right. Some fun facts that Debo put together for us about Nick Saban here in the last few minutes before you get to getting. Most first-round picks since 2008, 43 of them. By the way, Nick Saban arrived in Alabama in 2007, I believe. I don't think they had any kids drafted that 07 team, which is remarkable. I think they had a losing record, if I just go from memory. And then the old faucet came on, and all the first-round picks came out of it. Of those 44 first-round picks, 23 were 5 stars. 16 were 4 stars and 4 were 3 stars. I wonder who those 4 3-stars were.
That's the problem. That was the hardest thing with Nick to adjust in the NFL. You don't get 17 first-round picks every year out of your draft class.
You know what I'll say about Nick Saban as we're sort of doing this retrospective? Steelers lost over the weekend to the Bills, and Najee Harris, who played for Nick Saban and who thought you were an East Coast scout when you interviewed him during the pre-draft process, said after the game that essentially that this ain't like college where we had a lot more structure. We need a little more structure here. Yeah. And he said, I'm not talking about the coaches, but just the overall approach. And Nick Saban seems like he'd be a no-nonsense guy. And I think Najee appreciated that structure, and a lot of those players seem to.
Yeah, no. And like I said, he'll go down in history as one of the greatest college football coaches, up there with the Bear Bryants of the world and all the greats, and he is definitely on the Mount Rushmore, in my opinion, of college coaches.
Mac Jones, Josh Jacobs, Chance Warmack, the three stars that became first-round picks.
Look at Debo. I was going to guess Mac Jones, but I didn't want to be disrespectful, but Mac Jones it is. Well done, Debo. All right, I'm going to ask you this. I think you can talk. I think you can talk about this one.
I got my hat and my voice in case I can't.
All right, I can. I don't know if you have Debo's list in front of you or not. If not,
no. I'm flying off the cuff right now.
Okay. All right, off the top of your head, and then I'll give you some names if you struggle. Best first rounder to come out of Alabama during the Nick Saban era.
Boy,
you want some help?
Yeah, give me some.
Julio.
Yeah.
And let's talk about college, not what they did in the NFL, just strictly college performance. Julio, Amari Cooper. I'm going to mention Will Anderson Jr. Quinnen Williams had that one really good year. Devonta Smith. Jahmyr Gibbs was there for 1 year. Jonathan
I'm going
Allen.
with Julio.
Yeah. I've talked to people that think that the best Alabama player, Derek Thomas. That's not necessarily controversial, but number 2 on that list, I've heard Will Anderson, just in terms of Alabama performance.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Julio's what he's done, and he's probably a future Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah, no, I'll give you that one. I was just thinking about something that I heard in conjunction.
That's great. I appreciate you shared that. Now my day will be fulfilled going forward.
They're honestly, Ryan, a ton of success, but you wouldn't pinpoint a ton of future Hall of Famers on this list. Julio, yes.
Yeah. Right. And they're young. So Mink is still young. Calvin's not going to be a Hall of Famer, no disrespect, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Tua, Jalen Waddle, Patrick Surtain, great player. Again, a lot of these guys are pretty young, so we have to
Surtain's on that path.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, Hall of Famer?
Stephon Diggs' brother.
Trevon. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a second-round pick. Debo's got him
He
on
was
the
a
list.
receiver that Nick moved over to corner.
Wow, good move. Landon Collins was a second-rounder. Derrick Henry, Cam Robinson still playing. Trevon Diggs, you mentioned. Landon Dickerson for Debo's Eagles. Oh, boy, can he call plays? Brian Branch, who we just talked about earlier. And then some 5-star first-rounders. Oh, Drake Kirkpatrick. My lasting memory of Drake Kirkpatrick was Le'Veon Bell stiff-arming him through the earth. The Steelers-Bengals games. Trent Richardson, top 5 pick. Chance Warmack, as Debo mentioned before, was a 3-star. D. Milner. Oh, man, that's a blast from the past.
Ryan, you know how like recent Drake Kirkpatrick was, right? Like fairly recent player.
Yeah.
His son committed to Alabama this year.
Jeez. That doesn't sound right. He was
You know what'll be interesting? Everybody that committed to Nick, if there's going to be a lot of decommits or how this is going to all unfold. So
wide receiver Isaiah Bond left for Texas, I believe. Yeah. And then we'll see what else happens. But they moved quickly to get they had a succession plan in place, which is no surprise. And that's going to be fun to watch too with Kalen DeBoer out of Washington and what they do. And he got his offensive coordinator out of Washington as well.
As we were doing the show, I think Caleb Downs, the safety, announced plans to enter the portal.
Huh. Interesting.